Kick and chase by Mullins. Kick and chase again by Mullins. It'll be a miracle. Oh, it is a miracle. Fafita tries to crash his way over. He does. Fafita got the ball over the line.
Hodge's kick is over the sideline for a 40-20.
Yeah, g'day champions and welcome back to 4020 Sports. Got a massive episode for you guys today. Going to run through another three teams. That is going to be the South Syndey Rabbitohs, the New Zealand Warriors and the Roosters there. A couple of big things coming out of most of them clubs there. Good little ins and outs we've got for you. But before we get into all that, want to talk about the 4020 Cup. The league code for that is 122155. That's 122155. Huge effort from everyone last year. About 600 or 700 people joined us. So the first prize is going to take home $500 cash. Second prize, $250 cash. Third prize will be a merch pack. So like I said, 600 to 700 people joined last year. I think we're up to about 200 this year. Just want to repay the thanks and for everyone that gets to me on Instagram and YouTube. Just everyone that was in it. Good little community we're building there. So please do check us out on Instagram and please do subscribe to YouTube. To be eligible to claim those prizes, you do need to be doing one of the two. You need to be either subscribed on YouTube or following us on Instagram. So regardless if you are subscribed on YouTube and not looking at us on Instagram, please go over to our Instagram page. We do a ton of stuff throughout the year. It's all free. All our trades are free. Our captaincy choices, ins and outs. We show you our team. We leave nothing to the imagination. There's no Patreon shit going on here. So everything is up for grabs in our Instagram. So go and have a look at that and give us a follow if you can. All right, we'll get on to the good stuff. We'll start with the Rabbitohs. Last year, they finished 16th with 7 wins and 17 losses. Look, for what they've got and the arsenal they've got, especially in attacking-wise for that club there for the Rabbitohs, that'll be a very disappointing year. Look, I think one of the most disappointing out of any NRL team that we saw last year, you know, the likes of Latrell Mitchell, Cam Murray, Cody Walker, the signing of Jack White, and there was so much hope for the Rabbits last year. But look, a lot of it was due to injury. Latrell didn't play a lot of games. Cam Murray got injured. I think he only managed about 14 games last year, so they weren't without a few injuries. The coach, Demetriou, he got stacked about 3/4 through the season as well. So that didn't help, or maybe half through the season. Didn't help. Look, I just think it'll jot down as a bit of a year to forget for the old South Syndey Rabbitohs. So they'll be looking for bigger and better things coming into this year. Hopefully they can all stay fit and firing because they are a decent team. They should never be second last, that's for sure. Not with the cavalry they've got. The gains for them, they have got Jamie Humphries and Josh Schuster. They come over from the Sea Eagles. Ewan Aitken comes down from the Dolphins. He follows Uncle Wayne down there. They pick Lewis Dodd up from St Helens. He'll be an interesting point of call that we'll talk about a bit later. And Jaden Sullivan moves over from the West Tigers. The losses, Tommy Burgess is off to Huddersfield. Damien Cook and Lachlan Ilias, they are going to the Dragons. Dean Hawkins is off to the Eels. Tane Milne has been released. I think he's over in England playing there. Had a really good Pacific Champions tournament there for Tane Milne, so he'll be missed. Michael Cheekham is off to the Seagulls. To Hull, he has been released, and Isaac Thompson has also been released, a winger there. Their run for the first couple of games, it's a bit up and down. First 3 games are away. It's a bit tricky then it's Penrith and Roosters at home. So the Dolphins away, the Dragons away, the Sharkies away, into Penrith and the Roosters at home. It's a pretty tough draw to start the season. The first 2 games are really good, Dolphins and Dragons, although they are away, which may be a little bit of a hindrance on them. But yeah, Sharks, Penrith, Roosters could be an almighty battle there for the South Sydney boys there. But anyway, we'll get stuck into it. We're good to the good stuff. Hooker, Peter Mamazalas, 302k with a 31-point average last year. He is super popular this year. Last year he averaged 1.1 points per minute. So if he, a lot of people are talking about him, or he might be an 80-minute hooker. I highly doubt that. I think Savili Havili coming off the bench is more than likely what's going to happen. But there is Humphries to come off as the bench as well. The looks of Humphries, I really like him. He only got the 1 game there for the Seagulls last year, but he looks really promising at hooker. Peter Mamazelis, I think, though, with that PPM of 1.1, I don't think it's going to be a massive loss if he does only get about the 60 minutes. And then what I expect Havili to come on, chew up a bit of those minutes. I still think he's a decent option. A lot of people are going to run him as their number one hooker. It's very risky running the two cheapy hookers, but I think in a position that's just got so little upside, I think you can get away with it with a bloke like this. Had the 4 games where he went over 55 minutes last year and averaged 60 points. So if he gets anywhere near that, I'll be more than happy. If he plays 60 minutes and averages 45, 50 points, I'll still be happy. You know, that's money well spent for 302k. The front row forwards, they're not a great deal of interest for me for the South Syndey Rabbitohs. Nothing really up or down. No one's very popular. No one's got a high percentage of ownership at the moment. So, look, there's Jai Arrow, Davey Muali. Not a great deal of value there. Tavita Totola, he'll come back from a foot injury. He missed most of last season. Still not a fantastic option, but I think out of everyone there, 343k, fingers crossed he gets eased back into a role and only gets 25, 30 minutes a game sort of thing. And he could potentially lose even more money if he's up around 300k. Then I think he's a decent option. We get him at a cheapie, try and get an upgrade. Hopefully he's pushed into some minutes and then we run from there. Look, if you're going to take a punt on a cheapie, I've had a little look at Shaq Mitchell. 270k with a 30-point average, just the 6 games for last year and just the 11 in 2023. Look, he averages just a tick over 31 minutes a game, but I think out of all those people that we're looking for a cheapie option, I think he could be a decent option. First 3 games before injury, he was averaging 40 minutes for 40 points. So he's only based on a 30-point average. So if you can get something up around there, I think he's not even a decent buy, but he is cheap at 270k. If you don't trust that there's going to be any cheapies and you're sick of getting stuck with cheapie front rowers stuck on your non-playing players, could be an option 270. You could pair him with Royce Hunt there, and fingers crossed they jag a couple of attacking stats and you can flick them. 2RS, Keon Kalama-Tangi, 619k, 63-point average on last year. His real value really lies within playing through the middle in the locks and the likes of that. So got a bit of a run there when Cam Murray missed a good chunk of the season towards the back end of the season there. Really fired, got a bulk of his points. I think he's a little bit inflated because of that. I think Ewan Aitken coming down from the Dolphins, I think him being out for the first month, I really see Keon Kalama-Tangi starting on an edge. Cam Murray is set to be back now. We've got a bit of word that he should be right for round 1. It was looking like he was going to be out for about 6 or 7 weeks sort of thing, but now he's been cleared, so he's right to go. Not overly excited on Keon Kalama-Tangi. I think he's going to be a decent option at second row forward. He usually is, but he's just got those games where he plods between 50 and 60 points. So not for me. I think he might be a little bit overpriced if he gets an edge roll. Speaking of the man before, Cam Murray, 610k with a 62-point average last year. Look, a lot of people are having a bit of a look at him from last year, a bit of an injury-disrupted year. But I think he's gone 2 years in a row where he's had 62-point average. So I'm not really seeing the value in Cam Murray. He isn't really a guy that they play for 75 to 80 minutes in the lock position like other teams do. They sort of want to play him for the 60, even sometimes less, 55, 60 minutes. So I think he's valued at what he will probably expel in points, basically. So 62-point average, I think that's a fair price for Cam Murray. I don't see why a lot of teams are sort of picking him because I think that's about his value. Joshy Schuster, very popular one with super coaches, 265k, didn't play all of last year over there at the Eagles. I'm not as keen on Josh Schuster as most people are. I think maybe at the start of the year he finds his way into the starting 17. I don't know if there's a lot of value for him long term there. They've got a heap of people there in the back row and playing lock sort of thing there. They've got Ewan Aitken, Kalama-Tangi. Host, I would say, is ahead of him. He's half decent. They've got Jai Arrow and Duncan as well. So I'm not exactly sure where Josh Schuster gets a role in. I understand he has phenomenal potential, but it's whether Josh Schuster wants to get himself right to play first grade. Everyone's talking about Wayne Bennett will get him right. They'll get him right, but I think Wayne Bennett will probably move towards an Aitken, Kalama-Tangi edge. So I'm not really sure where he fits in all of that. Look, 60-point average in 2021, which is fantastic, and 2023 had a 45-point average. If he gets up around that, he'll be good value, but that he was starting 5'8" and starting second rower, so he was getting 80 minutes a game pretty much. I'm not sure if he's going to get that. For the halfback, Lewis Dodd, he is right up there for me, 336k, international player from England, comes over from St Helens in the Super League there. Haven't seen a lot of him, but what I have seen of his highlights reel, he's got a very strong running game. He's got a very good short kicking game. A few people, I think, are going to talk people out of it by saying, he was actually dropped. He was dropped midway through the year for St Helens, but then I think he was only out for 2 or 3 weeks, got recalled to the side and drove St Helens all the way to the semi-finals. So, look, he's got some ability, this kid. Whether he can withstand the rigours of NRL, that seems to be a very hard thing for backs to do, coming over from the Super League. Whether he can withstand week in, week out competitive NRL football will be a different kettle of fish, but he's got some arsenal around him. He's got some super attacking players. Jackie White and Cody Walker. Campbell Graham's going to be firing fit. There's another attacking weapon out wide. Latrell Mitchell, these sort of guys. So, look, if he gets firing 336k, he could be a bargain for that. 5'8", Cody Walker, 559k, 57-point average on last year. Comes off his worst Supercoach year in his career. But look, the Rabbits, they were terrible last year. They second last. I think that's the worst the team's ever gone with Cody Walker playing in that side as well. So, look, the consensus is that the Rabbits are going to be top 8 team this year. So whether you believe that or not, they will improve on last year. They should be nice and fit. Cody Walker should have a lot more attacking opportunities coming up. 560k, he's a wonderful price for a 5'8". Look, he does have these low games. He's got a low base. His base is only 20 points on average a game. So that is pretty ordinary, but he is duals, halfback 5'8". I think if he's firing fit for round 1, which there now is some question marks. Apparently he's done his calf, which is why he isn't playing the All-Stars. I think he's nearly been all but ruled out for the first 2 preseason challenge games. So he'll be one to monitor. I did have him penciled in for my side. I think at that value he was really good, but yeah, could throw a bit of a spanner in the works, the fresh injury coming up. CTW's Campbell Graham, he is at 505k, suffered that rib sternum injury last year, had the big surgery getting rid of the dead bone out of his sternum, so he comes at a massive discount of nearly $200,000 from last year at what he would have started from the previous year in 2023. So 505k is an exceptionally juicy price tag on him for what we know he can expel in points. Look, 16% ownership is quite low. I think a lot of people are scared off because of maybe the hand injury. They're scared off of that. They thought he was going to miss round 1, but I think he is also pretty much ready to go for round 1. I'm not sure if he's going to play some of the preseason trials. The thing with his injuries, though, you've got a bloke like Tino who is coming back from an ACL. Not Tom Flegler, Tommy Gilbert. He's coming back from an ACL injury as well. Got these terrible injuries, lower limb issues. I wouldn't be as worried about Campbell Graham's injury and his return to contact as bad with that, or return to full speed with that. He's got nothing wrong with his lower body. It is a contact injury, the sternum and the hand. So I think as long as he's healed up and as long as he's fresh and he gets a bit of confidence in a couple of runs, especially with that sternum injury, hand will get right. I think he'll pretty much bounce back to what he was a lot quicker than what a guy would with an ACL injury. So Campbell Graham, 505k is decent value. Tyrone Munro, 397k with a 38-point average. Look, apparently he's put on a heap of size during the off-season. Whether that works for him or not, I'm not sure. He's a real speedster, real fleet-footed thing. Just 7 games in his 2-year career, so it hasn't been without injury. Last year was pretty ordinary for him, and of course the year before he just got into the squad towards the back end of the year, but he is super young. Look, I think at nearly 400k, he's no longer a cheapie. A lot of guys are thinking of picking him up for this 38, basically 40-point average, but I'm not overly convinced. I know he doesn't have a great work rate opposed to most and other CTWs, most wingers there, so he's more of a flashy kind of guy. He could score a heap of tries in bunches sort of thing, but look, I'll be looking at this guy if the first 2 rounds, nice and easy, he's got a 70 and an 80 in his score. I may pick him up then, although the road is pretty tough after those first 2 games. For the fullback spot there, Latrell Mitchell, 866k, 88-point average on last year. Look, just the 11 games from last year before he was injured, but he got the 4 tons in those 11 games. It was incredible. Along with that, he got a 150-point game, which is massive. Look, he looks unbelievably fit coming into 2025 season. He's got Wayne back. I think it's been pretty well documented that him and Wayne get on really well. I think Wayne can get the best out of him, and I think he's a no-brainer. Kicks goals, runs hard. Look, he's got a bit of a low base. It's terrible. It's 19 on average, which is really bad for fullbacks, but his attacking opportunities and his attacking prowess more than make up for that, I think. Last 4 years, his averages have been 82, 84, 77, and 88. So look, if you're worried about, I don't think he's going to do that good. He's just a stud. He averages anywhere between 77 and 88. So I'm willing to take the gamble on that. I think Souths will do a lot better. I think he'll have more kicking opportunities coming into this. But yeah, look, I think Latrell Mitchell will be one of the ones to start with at the fullback role, regardless if you're going to run 3 or not. I think he needs to be one of the 2, or even the number 1 that you start with. Look, for South, I've got them finishing this year between 4th and 8th. I think Wayne Bennett is going to come in and just absolutely hose these guys on their performances last year. Like I said, that a lot of it, not much they could have done with the amount of injuries. They were playing some shocking footy, but the injuries just were too much that they could sort of withstand. So, look, I think Lewis Dodd is going to be a really good signing. I think he's going to free up a lot of players. They needed a little bit of consistency there in their number 7. Cody Walker jumped in there last year for a fair bit there. But look, I just think Lewis Dodd being able to let Cody Walker, Latrell Mitchell do what they want to do and have a genuine 7, not Lachlan Ilias like they had last year, or Cody Walker doing the 7 sort of jersey. I just think Lewis Dodd is going to free everyone up to be able to play the expansive sort of football that they will, and that we know that they can do. So yeah, that's where I've got the Rabbitohs. The next one on our list here, we are going to have a run through the New Zealand Warriors. Finished 13th last year with 9 wins, 14 losses and a draw. Pretty disappointing for the Wars. They came off 2023 top 4. That was a sensational year. You know, everything in New Zealand was buzzing. They were primed for absolute glory in that country. For New Zealand, they sold out every game in advance. It was just so much of a buzz there over in New Zealand. But I think they butchered it. They did have a winning record over there in New Zealand of 6 wins, 5 losses. But it's not enough. They should have won 10-2 really, with the crowd that they have there, the difficulty that people have getting over there. But yeah, anyway, winning record there, 6-5. The travel to Sydney absolutely butchered them, and this happens with Warriors sides. 3 out of 12 games they won last year, travelling over to Australia. So they really need to fix that up this year to be a top 8 contender. The gains, the big one, the big fish, James Fisher-Harris and Jet Cleary, they get them from the Panthers. Aaron Clark comes over from the Titans along with Tanner Boyd, so a bit of depth there. The losses, Aden Fanua-Blake, that's the big one. He heads off to the Sharks. Jazz Tavanga, he is off to the Seagulls. Marcelo Montoya, he is gone to the Bulldogs. Sean Johnson and Tohu Harris recently have retired from NRL football. Look, the draw for them is a bit rocks and diamonds as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they go with the first couple of weeks there. They've got the Raiders over in Vegas, Manly Seagulls at home, Roosters at home. So what you would think is 2 decently hard games, maybe made a little bit easier by the fact that they're over there in New Zealand. Then they've got the Tigers away, the bye, and then the Storm away. So a bit of a mixed bag there for the Warriors. Should be, sort of half even of what between easy and hard, I think. So pretty good run for the first 5-6 games there for the Warriors. In the hooker position, Wade Egan. We're going to have a look at him at 491k, based off a 50-point average of last year. I think he's an option at hooker if he can get the 80 minutes. I'm not sure if he will, because Lussick is sitting there. He came off the bench a lot last year. But look, if they finally do decide to run Wade Egan at 80 minutes, he had a 63-point game average on last year. Got 10 games there at 80 minutes, so he can play them. We know he can play them. I just think the the discussion there with Lussick is going to really hurt him. Aaron Clark also, I think he's tipped to play the lock there where Harris has gone. But yeah, I just think if he plays 80 minutes and he's locked in at 80 minutes and we get confirmation on that, I think he's actually decently priced at $491K for what he can put out. Front row forwards there, Mitchie Barnett, $661K, 67-point average on last season. 11% ownership, which I think is quite high for Mitch Barnett. There is a bit of popularity around the man. Did have about 8 games playing in the back row for the 80 minutes, which has inflated his scores. His scores were much better playing 80 minutes on an edge than they were through the middle, although he still is a gun through the middle. So there's no worries about that. Look, the minutes for him, I still think he's going to average around that 55-minute mark through the middle. I think that's what he got last year, roughly. So I don't think a lot changes there. You know, Adam Fanua-Blake is gone, but still they've brought the fish in. So I think his role and his minutes won't change. So I'm not sure that there's a lot of value there for Mitch Barnett at 661K. Is dual, so which is nice, but yeah, I just don't think there's a value there on 660K for front row. I'm not willing to pay up for that. James Fisher-Harris, $550K with a 56-point average on last year. Only averaged 46 minutes a game last year with the Panthers, which I was actually a little bit surprised about. There were a lot of games where he was sitting around 55 minutes there for them, which I think it may be more likely to do with the Warriors. He's coming over, they've lost Adam Fanua-Blake, they need someone to play decent minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a bit of a minutes upgrade from 46 to around about 42. I'd be pushed for thinking he's going to get about 55 minutes because he's played a lot of footy in the last couple of years. But I can see it around, they'll want to play him for 50 minutes, 52 minutes, so a little bit of an upgrade. Whether that's enough to entice you to go with him, not exactly sure, but he does have a 67-point average on the 7 games where he did play over 50 minutes, so that's pretty decent average. I probably won't start with him. I'm not even looking to start with him, but if his numbers continue and he consistently gets around 50 to 55 minutes, he's averaging 67, I'll be looking at him, especially during the Origin period. For the 2 RFs, Aaron Clark, $391K, based on a 40-point average last year. Looks a likely replacement to take Tohu Harris's spot in the number 13 jersey there. But I highly doubt he is getting the minutes that Tohu Harris was. Tohu Harris was an 80-minute lock. I just don't think Aaron Clark will get that. I think a lot of people are getting very, very excited about him at $391K, saying he's going to play 70, 80 minutes. I don't think so. He'll have a minute split with Dylan Walker. I would not be surprised if it was 40-40, 50-30, something around there. So, did average just 38 minutes last year. 5 games, he got close enough to the 50-minute mark. He had a 49-point average. So, there is a bit of value there. But again, I'm not really 100% sure on it. Is dual, which is lovely. If you wanted to play him as, a backup front row forward, I think he's a decent option. But again, I think you can have a look at him for the first couple of rounds until jumping on. I don't think he's a slam dunk. Dimitri Vaimaga, he is $232K, 29-point average on last year. Just one to watch with a couple of people departing. The Warriors. Averaged just the 18 minutes last year in 4 games. Had a massive PPM of 1.6, which is out of this world. So look, not expecting him to get that next year, but fingers crossed if he can get around the 30 to 35 minutes, if he plays a bit of sort of game coming off the bench. He could average 40 points in there and then be a bit of a steal for us. So a good cheapie option. Watch him in the trials, but he could be one to have a look at. Halfback, we're going to have a look at Tamare Martin at $663K with a 67-point average. Look, he was excellent in the absence of Sean Johnson last year. He came in and filled the number 7 role every time Sean Johnson was out. So he actually did a really, really good job. He flew under the radar for most of it, but by the end of the season, a lot of people were jumping on. Cracked the 100 mark 4 out of 16 games, which is decent. Does have some sub-40 games in his scores, though. He does have a very low base, but I mean, that's why it averages out at 67-point average. Also cracked the 90 mark on 2 more occasions. So that's 6 games he went absolutely bonkers. Everyone talks about the 100 games. No one really talks about the 90 games. So 90 for me is close enough. I think that's a huge game. Anything over the 90 mark is a massive game. Doesn't have to be the 100 to be a whopper. Look, I think he's the front runner for the 7 jersey there over in New Zealand. I'll be having a bit more of a look at him this year than I was last year. I sort of dismissed him and thought he was just a bit of a myth, but he went all right, actually. So keep an eye on him. Origin period could be an option there if he's the out-and-out 7 there. Tanner Boyd, I think there's a few too many people speculating he could have the number 7 jersey. I don't think he's going to get it over Tamari Martin. Tamari Martin, decent option. I think Tamari will be there round 1. People talking about Tanner Boyd's kicking game and that. I think Tamari Martin's got a decent kicking game. So, we're one to watch. 5'8" there, we got Luke Metcalf. Very highly touted Luke Metcalf this year. Very highly ownership. 443k, 50-point average on last year. So, we do get a nice little discount because he only played the 7 games last year. Love the look at him. Great running game, great passing game. He's electric. You know, he's very light on his feet. He has a fantastic short ball to his second rower, which really works well. Look, starts a year nearly 50k cheaper than he did last year. There was a bit of interest in him once he did string a couple of good games together. Did have him in my side for a little bit last year. Absence of Sean Johnson. All reports, barring a shock Tanner Boyd into the number 7 jersey, he should have the goal kicking Lukey Metcalf. So if he gets that, has a good running game, good passing game, I think 443k, he's already at a discount. I think he's a steal and he should be in most teams. The CTWs, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, 553k. He is at a 56-point average. Saw an amazing base on Roger. Everyone knows the base that Roger's got. The base of 38 points on average a game is phenomenal. I don't think he's going to be too relevant, though, again, unless he starts playing fullback. Played most of the last year in the centres, so look, the attacking options just didn't really come there as much as what they did or what they could for him in fullback. So, Roger, I'll be looking at him pretty closely. I'll be watching the trials. There is a little bit of talk of chance going into the centres and Roger swapping around. He teased a little thing on Instagram saying a new position coming up, so fuck knows what that means. A little bit of mind games coming up, I think. But anyway, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, if he gets into the fullback jersey and he's got a base of nearly 40 points a game, he is one to talk about there in our CTWs. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, 537k, 55-point average on last year. Look, rocks and diamonds, epitome of Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. I think he's in the same mould as like a Ronaldo, Mulatalo. You know, he'll just go on a spate of games where 5 or 6 games, he'll score 8 or 9 tries and everyone will jump on and then won't score a try for 3 games and average 40 points maximum over that sort of period. So I don't like it. I don't like getting those sort of players in my side. I think he probably sits around a 55-point average for the season. I think at some stage he'll be 300k, 350k, and then I think at some stage of the season he'll probably be 600 to 700k. So whether you want to jump on if he lowers down in price or not, I just don't like the roller coaster that is Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. I'm looking at the next thing that's coming up. Fullback Chance Nickel-Klokstad, 662k based on a 67-point average. Not an option for me. He is only fullback, so I probably won't be going anywhere near that. But like I said, him and Roger, if they swap and goes into CTWs, he could be a bit of an option, but still, I'm not even convinced. If he jumps into there, look, I think he's just in that mid fullback area that you don't want to touch. You don't want to spend up that much for. You'd rather a cheapie, an Iongi, or a gun. So, look, average base of 36 is really nice. It's very, very similar to Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's, but again, just lacking a bit of upside there for the fullback position. For the Wars, I've got them 7th to 12th. They've got to start winning games overseas. That's no secret. Everyone knows it. It's pretty common knowledge. I think the fact that James Fisher-Harris has come over, I think he's going to instill a lot of professionalism in him. Going to get these games overseas. That is going to be such a talking point with their team with the 3 and fucking 12 or whatever it was. 3 out of 12, sorry. Record from last year, that's abysmal away. They'll need to fix that up. I think if they can fix that up, which is relatively easy to do, they can beat these teams. They know they can beat them at home. Why can't they beat them away? I think they should jump into the 8 if they get it all together and they stay relatively injury-free. Tohu Harris not being there is a massive one, but I think the signing of James Fisher-Harris will just instill a bit more professionalism out of that camp. So they just need to mirror what they're doing in New Zealand, in Australia, and I think they'll be a shot at the 8. Moving on to our third and final team, the Roosters. 16 wins and 8 losses last year to finish third. Decent year from the Roosters last year. Bit of a disappointing one in 2023 where they finished 7th. But look, it was nearly curtains, lights over. Everyone ruled them out once Sammy Walker and Brandon Smith went down late in the season. Finished the year pretty average. I think they got beat by Canberra, or Canberra was when Brandon Smith went down and all those injuries started to occur, but they end up getting rolled by both the Panthers in the first round of the semi-finals and the Storm. Bundled them out in pretty easy succession, which everyone sort of expected once the injuries happened, you know. But look, a decent year from the Chookies, just crippled by a bit of injuries at the wrong time of the season, unfortunately. The gains there, hold on to your hats. The gains for the Roosters, Chad Townsend, that's it. They signed him towards the back end of last year. Look, a decent signing with Sam Walker going down. But yeah, look, the losses are a lot more outweighing of the gains there for the Roosters this year. For the losses, it's not pretty. Joey Suoli'i, Joey Manu, they head over to rugby union. Satili Tupanui, he's gone to the Dogs. Terrell May is off to the Tigers. Jared Wera-Hargraves, he has gone to Hull KR. And Luke Keary is off to the Catalan Dragons. That is a lot of experience, a lot of firepower that they're losing this year. But the good news is that opens up a lot of spots for super coaches. So we'll get into that. Their run, it's bloody hard going to start the season. They have the Broncos at home, into Penrith away, the Warriors away, Titans at home, and then the Rabbits away. It's hard looking. I think the next couple of games after that are pretty ordinary as well from the Roosters. I think the Daily Telegraph had them 1-6 to start the season before it starts evening out a little bit, which, look, could work wonders for super coaches. We'll talk a little bit, especially in the CTWs, but if you've got these guys that you're pretty keen on, and the first couple of weeks their run into the season is very, very hard and their averages are low, and you know they're guns of the super coach world, sit on them. Hold it until they start to bottom in price, jump in on them. Anyway, we'll talk about that a bit later. For the hooking position there, Connor Watson, $583K. 59-point average, on last year. He's up around the 25% ownership, so he is massively owned at that hooking position. I highly doubt he is owned in second row where he has his duels. Should get the starting spot at hooker with Brandon Smith set to miss what I think is 3/4 to nearly the end of the year with that ACL injury. I think he did both ACL and MCL in that crusher tackle there that Elliot Whitehead got him in, so Connor Watson will be the main guy at the number 9. Look, the minutes is something that I'm not exactly sure on, but it does have his minutes here. Last year when he played the hooking role was 73 minutes, 80 minutes, and then 70 minutes again. So they'll be decent minutes. He can pump out 80 minutes a game. He may be called upon that to do that this year. I'm not even sure who their backup hooker will be. In the 3 games last year when Brandon Smith was absent, he averaged 60 points. So, look, it's decent. I'm not 100%. There's a lot of potential for upside with him. I know a lot of people are saying, we've got to get on him. He's going to be a gun. He's priced at $583K. His average for the 3 games where he had all that cavalry around him with Luke Keary, Jared Wera-Hargraves, Suoli'i, Joey Manu, all these kind of guys in this team where the bloody Roosters were doing quite well. How is he going to go if they're not doing quite well, which everyone is expecting them to do? A bit of a regression on last year. So, look, his average is already 60 there in the 3-game snippet we had with the Guns. What's it going to be? I like it. I think he's the value pick on potential-wise, but I'm not overly convinced by it. I think I'd rather start with someone else and move to him if he does start braining it. Like I said, they do have quite a hard draw. Maybe he could drop down even more and then you could pick him up coming in closer to round 6 or 7 sort of thing and then get him really cheap, then his value increases. Front row forward, Spencer Leniu, $393K, 40-point average on last year. Look, he could get a bump up in minutes with JWH no longer there, but I just think he's an out-and-out impact player off the bench. Every team that he's done that for, he seems to be the most effective. I don't think him starting is the answer there. I think this guy, Nafufua White, at $367K on a 37-point average, I think he is the Roosters' answer to their front row issues. I think he will be their front row starting gig for next year. And look, if he is, I think he's nearly a must. Just a 33 minutes average last year. I believe if he does start at front row, even if he doesn't, those minutes will increase. But if he does start at front row, I think his minutes could increase to about 45 minutes a game. Games over 40 minutes last year, he averaged 53 points, and with a point per minute of 1.1. Even if he only gets 40 to 45 minutes, I still think that point per minute will rack up there. He's really good with his tackle busts. If he sticks there 45 minutes, I think he should be roughly 50-point average. Fingers crossed. 367K, he'll make a shitload of cash on you anyway. He could end up around the 500K mark, which would be lovely. 2 RFs, Angus Crichton, 758K on a 77-point average. Only 7% owned for people so far. That's a little bit unheard of, I think, for 2 RFs, especially those that were the highest averaging 2 RFs from last year, Angus Crichton. Not a great deal talked about him, not a great deal of people thinking of putting him in his side, but look, he's got an amazing upside, and I think people are worried about the halves combination, how that's all going to work. There were games he was getting 70 and 80 without anyone helping him at all. Just his work rate and his offloads and tackle busts especially contribute to so much of his score. He doesn't need to score tries every now and like every second week or whatever it is. I think he's a really good option. I'm just not sure on the price tag. Nearly 760K. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money with all this new flex position coming in. People wanting to get a lot of upside, like proper upside people in there. Look, he did have 4 100-plus games out of 20 of the games that he played and was going 60-plus in 65% of his games. So that's pretty decent for a 2RF. I'm just thinking more along the lines of there needs to be a little bit more value for me. Although he could be one to jump on if he starts slowly, like I'm talking about this tough draw. Starts slowly, gets down to around about 650. I think he'll be an option then. Victor Radley at 542K, 55-point average. Look, just keep an eye on him. A little one to note was when Victor Radley was playing lock, which I think he'll play this year. When he was playing the lock position and Sam Walker came through the grades and he came into first grade, he wasn't fully confident in his role. I think Sandon Smith might be a little bit similar in that sort of perspective. I think Victor Radley could get into lock and be a lot more heavily involved in the ball playing, especially in good ball. Just one to have a look at. I've got next to no stats on that. It's more of a vibe sort of check there, but if he gets a lot more involved in attacking opportunities, he could be someone with a bit of uptick. Won't play Origin, so could be a decent option in the bye rounds. For the halfback, we'll jump onto this man, Sandon Smith, very, very popular, and so he should be. 237K, 24-point average for what he's coming into the 2024 season. Look, he should be starting halfback to kick off the season for the Roosters. The injury to Walker, we've talked about that. He will be their halfback for most of the season until Sam Walker is back. Tip to get the goal kicking. He does goal kick, I think, at about 73 or 74%, so it's a decent option there. Just bottom dollar, just put him in. You don't have to play him week in, week out. These harder games, you just hold on to him, ride it out. Fingers crossed he gets up around 400-something K, 450, and then we offload him and get into someone else. Chad Townsend is there as well, but he's very awkwardly priced, and I wouldn't touch him. 5'8", doesn't exist there for the Roosters. The 5'8" position, the only person there is a man called Jake Elliott, and I have no idea who that is. So I would imagine he's well down on the pecking order. I would not be touching him. CTWs, Dominic Young and Daniel Tupu, 701K and 674K. We're going to wrap these guys into one because I basically think it's the exact same situation for both of these guys. They're both highly priced on an average of last year where their team was clicking, doing really well. Very hard first 5-6 rounds, 7 rounds as well. Like we've talked about, there's every chance where these guys have very limited attacking options with the new halves, lack of front rowers like we're talking about. Every chance these guys just plummet in price. And I'm talking averaging 45, 50 for these guys, where they go down to 450 to 550K. I'd be looking at picking them up around there if that is the case. This is all hypothetical, of course. But look, I think there's a word where Dom Young and Dan Tupou, they go into a bit of a regression into the start of the season. Points are always hard to get by. Look for them to be on the bounce back. They'll be the wingers. They'll be the starting wingers for sure this year. Just keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on when the Roosters draw goes through a bit of an easier draw, and yeah, I'd be looking at them after around about round 7. Fingers crossed they lose a bit of cash. Mark Nwanganita-Waze, 438k, 64 points in his one game last year. He had an absolute day out in his debut. I think the hype's a little bit too big for Nwanganita-Waze. Look, he's a phenomenal talent, international rugby player, tall, handsome. God, he's handsome. He's got speed and athleticism. We saw that in the first game in his debut. He's also lit it up in New South Wales Cup. So he is an out-and-out gun. I'm just not exactly where they put him. Like we talked about, Daniel Tupu, Dom Young, they're going to be the starting wingers more than likely. He's got the likes of Palga, Robert Toya, Billy Smith fighting for the centre spot. So I'm not sure that they would put him in the centres. I'm not exactly sure if he would be able to handle that defensively. Centre is a very tricky position defensively. Whether he's had enough games under his belt, possibly he has. Possibly he's had a full preseason where he's trained at centre, but I think he's an out-and-out winger, and I'm just not sure exactly where they pick him. The other thing is he's 438k. He's not exactly a cheapie. He's at a discount of 64 points for the one game, which is it. We didn't really get a big snippet of him, but 438k, you are starting to ask a little bit more. There's a McLean brother there that's 440, that's an out-and-out gun that we've seen play international duties for New Zealand. So I would wait. I would not be putting Nwanganita-Waze in my team. I would be watching him in the trials. Even so, I would probably give him the 2 games to wait on it before I'd be selecting him in my squad. I think he's a guy that if you get 2 weeks to have a bit of a look at, I think we need that being a rugby player. Billy Smith is the next one at 317k. Talks he should get the centre spot there. Look, that's all rumours. It's speculative. The issue with Billy Smith is he is injury prone. We all know he is injury prone. Missed last year. I think the most games he's played in a season over the last 6 seasons is 14 games. The thing with that, it was 2023 and he had a 54-point average on that year. So if he gets back to that, 317k, if he can average anywhere near 50, 45, 50, he's going to make us a shitload of cash and he's going to be an option. If he gets the centre spot, just pick him. He'll be if he gets injured, trade him. It's fine. You've got trades there for a reason. Robert Toya, 198k, bottom dollar, and is set for a centre position, I believe. Whispers are, though, he is battling a little bit coming back from his injury, with his ACL injury. Apparently, this man is an absolute gun. Apparently, last year in one of his games, had 14 tackle busts, so he's an absolute freak. So if he does start, if he is in the starting position, I would be getting him in my side. With the lack of cheapies that there are there in the wing centre spot, I'd be tempted to put him in even if he's not. 198k, he's bottom dollar. I'll be chucking him in at a risk that he gets a spot. Everything about him that everybody has talked about, the highlights that I've seen, it is all phenomenal and it oozes supercoach friendly game. So look, I would be starting with him regardless. Just keep an eye on him with this little injury that it doesn't hamper him long term. If we get word about it that he's going to be out for bloody 12 to 13 weeks, then we start looking at not starting him. But if it says he won't be right for round 1, he'll be good to go round 2, 3, I'd be starting with him still. Fullback, James Tedesco, 920k, 94-point average last year. Highest averaging fullback for 2024. Is owned by just 5% of players. So there's probably a bit of a reason for that. We'll get into that soon. But 11 games where he went 100 plus last year, which was the highest of any player. Just so much uncertainty around him and the team. It just reeks of 2023 where he had a 69-point average for the season. The reason he had that such a low season is because the halves combination wasn't really firing and it was a lot of Teddy doing way too much work, overworking his hand, trying a little bit too hard, and it really just got clunky, looked ugly, didn't work. For me, it reeks of that. I just see a 2023 season. There's a new halves partner coming in with Chad Townsend and Sandon Smith. Like, I just don't like it. I just think it reeks of him being overpriced. He had such a good year last year. I think even if he does have a fantastic year this year, is he going to have a 94-point average year? It's something that everyone's going to have a bit of a look at. I don't believe there is any value in him to start the season. Again, tough draw. There's I don't think he averages 75 for this first 6 or 7 weeks. So I think if you are keen on James Tedesco, again, with a lot of these players, we're repeating ourselves, but just wait the first couple of weeks here, get through the tough draw, give him a look. Even the first 2 games, give him a look then. For the Roosters, I've got them sitting 8th to 13th. Look, a lot of people have got big worries for the Roosters, sitting them down between 13th and bloody 17th. So I don't have them sitting there that low. I think they've still got a lot of class in their team, but they have lost a lot of quality. So I think that'll be them trying to fight for a top 8 spot, let alone being a premiership contender. Again, with injuries, I'm not sure what happens if Chad Townsend, Sandon Smith go down, Connor Watson goes down. They'll be shot. They'll be shot in the foot if that all happens. Look, the new look backline as well. We've got Toya Nwanganituwaze, Billy Smith, those kind of guys fighting for centre spots, wing spots. I'm just not sure how it's all going to click together, let alone trying to exceed a top 8 spot. So yeah, that's where I've got the Roosters sitting. Anyway, guys, that is about it for tonight. That's all we've got. Again, our league code 122155 4020 Cup. Jump on that. Come and join. First prize, $500, cool hard cash. Second prize, $250 in the bank. Third merch pack for you, hats, shirts, stickers, all that good stuff. Must be following on Instagram or subscribed to our YouTube. But regardless, please go and have a bit of a look at our Instagram. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up there for the year. We've done we're nearly through all the player profiles there. So a bit of information coming up along there. So anyway, guys, we'll leave you with that. Take care, legends. Have a good night and look after each other. Cheers, legends. Bye.